to visit this university. I don't know what kind of relation I got, but whenever I get offer from Dr. Body offer, I really like, okay, let's go. Stop some other activities. So I will not spend much time, but I just say thank you very much, sir, for your kind introduction. And I will tell you guys, since this course is going on, so you guys may be knowing the basic aspect. So I will give some problem based. So the moment you go back home, you can see, okay, how you formulate your research and get some ideas how to proceed with the projects. Or else if you have anything in your mind, please stop me at any point and ask the question. So I will give this is just example, BRCA1. This is the breast cancer associated domain 1. So there are two genes. You can have any genes. It depends on your interest. Someone wants to work on the other genes, CHK1, MBCO. There are several genes in the gene data bank. I'm working on this one of the projects because we work in the cancer hospital. So working in the cancer hospital, we are little bit kind of, we should work on only on the cancer. It depends on what, it depends on us what kind of cancer, but we should work on the cancer. So I will tell you what is the use of this genes when we work on the cancer, how we predict the cancer using these genes, what is the outcome, and what is the purpose of working in the cancer hospitals. So you will see, I will show something interesting. And you see this, someone can see this? This is so we have two wings in our hospital. This is the ECTRIC, Advanced Center for Treatment, Research, Education in Cancer. This is TMC, under the umbrella of TMC, Tata Memorial Center. We have two wings. One wing is the basic science, another one is the clinical wing. So there is a bridge between the basic science and clinical wings. And the purpose of constructing this bridge is to get the better communication between the scientist and clinician. So the what scientist is doing, that should be translated to the clinic, and what clinician is doing, what kind of problems are there, that should come to the basic scientist. So this bridge is not a hypothetical bridge. This is really exists physically. There is a bridge, so that we can go from basic science to the clinical science. So bioinformatics, what is the purpose? Bioinformatics in it's kind of a how we define the bioinformatics. I will tell you, really we cannot define the bioinformatics. Someone is using the computer, and using computer he can build the patient, he can design the hospital, and someone can come and inject something to the patient, and patient started moving and dancing. So that's not a bioinformatics. Bioinformatics is really based on some experimental results already available, and considering those experimental results, we formulate the formula and predict something else. So bioinformatics help us in reducing the consumables, human resources, what we waste for nothing. For example, you are working on any drugs, okay, and someone is saying this drug is very good, and you started synthesizing that drug and gone to the biological activity level, and then finally you found that that drug is not water soluble. You have the drug, someone is saying, okay, this drug is very good, it is showing anti-cancer activities. You started working on that drug and you found that toxicity is more than the biological activities. So the patient who is dying by disease, he is not dying by disease. At the moment you give the medicine, he will die by the toxicity of your medicine. So we don't want this kind of medicine. So bioinformatics help us in reducing the time frame what we used to spend or what we are spending in the wet laboratories. So as I told you, the use of computer to handle biological information, this term is often used in computational molecular biology, or the use of computer to search and characterize the genetic code of genes, proteins, nucleic genes, and their associated functions. So okay, we can say that okay, this is the bioinformatics, but I can say that this is really bright new fields, and it's like a standard definition of the word. Okay, so how to define the bioinformatics? It matters what kind of a project, what kind of a work you are doing. Now, why we people are focusing, why most of the people are focusing in the bioinformatics? Because those who have seen the computer 5 years back, you talk with him, and those who have seen the computer are working on the computer now, there is a big differences. You say someone that okay, I am working on this problem and I will start out in a 5 minutes. He will say, no, how come you can start out in 5 minutes? It takes months. So nowadays, those days are no more. We have very good sophisticated software, sophisticated computers. The things that used to take 24 hours or 48 hours, that can be done in minutes. So that's why people is more focused on the bioinformatics. And one great scientist of India, he was saying, if you don't have funds, do the bioinformatics, because it needs only computer and your idea in software. So why we work on the bioinformatics? See, 1 out of every 2 men and 1 out of every 3 women will have some type of a cancer at some point in their lifetime. And cancer, it is one of the leading causes of death in the world that represents a tremendous burden on patients, families, and societies. And what is the statistical data? In 2008, there were 12.4 million new cases of cancer diagnosed and 7.6 million deaths from the disease. And by the year 2030, these numbers will rise to an expected 26.4 million cancer cases, 17 million deaths, and 75 million people living with disease. When, if our ability to prevent, diagnose, and treat cancer does not improve. So, how to handle these many data sets, these many millions of the results, unless until we don't have bioinformatics? I'm sorry, it's very difficult to compile the information about these number of data sets. Okay, so this data, what it indicates, does this indicate that scientists and clinicians are not working? They are working hard, 24 hours. Okay, you can say one scientist is not working, one laboratory is not working, billions of dollars are floating across the world. But it's still, several journals, several things is ongoing, but we don't have any things that can, okay, take this just like and go home, you will not have any more cancer. But we have something. What we have done, we scientists, clinicians, we reduce the pain what patients used to get. We reduce the time frame, troubleshooting what a family and other used to get. Why we are not able to cure this disease? Because there is a challenge in treating cancer. Every tumor is different, and every, of course, cancer patient is different. Every tumor is different means in a somehow, some point, genomic level, proteomics level, they are different. Okay, so it is very difficult to handle this disease. I will just spend some time on the phylogenetic analysis. So, I think you may be knowing what it is. The very important, these are the 3 steps to analyze phylogenetic. First one is the multiple alignment, and then distance calculation, and tree construction. So these are the basic steps. But what I am doing, I am involved on this, I will explain you guys. So what are the basic assumptions in phylogenetic analysis? What people agree about? Protein evolve over time. This is everybody is saying, due to whatever the changes occur, that is because of the evolution in the protein. But what people don't agree, everything is beside this. How protein evolves, how fast protein evolves, and what is the best method for measuring evolution. And I am saying the alignment is key. Okay, so I am saying alignment is key. I am talking about the bioinformatics. if I say, okay, this is a target for cancer and I design a drug and that drug is hitting at the target and compiling all the rules and regulations and that drug is best. So is that much easy? No, it's not this much easy. It is too complicated. Since I am talking about bioinformatics, so this is the one of the model. I am saying that the alignment is key. How alignment is key? What sequence alignment is key? See, this is breast cancer domain, BRCA1 gene, and this BRCA1, these dotted line, you see these dotted lines, that is the sequence similarity. Okay, means here if here, so suppose here is C, that means here is C, these all are, and these are the differences. So what can we conclude? So what can we conclude from this gene? Someone affected with the mutations in BRCA1, they are predisposed to a cancer at particular age of his or her life. So what is the conclusion? See, this is the ring domain and this is the BRCT domain. BRCT domain is called because it is a C-terminal domain of the BRCA, that's why it is called BRCT domain. And these are the conservative. So there are all, BRCA1 is present in so many species, and this is the sequence alignment of all these. And what is the conclusion? That is, see, these two domains are very much conserved in all diseases, and including that these are the motif also. So what we concluded on the basis of alignment, that okay, something is interesting here, something is interesting here, something is interesting. So we got a key that okay, why this particular region is a conserved in all the sequences. Okay, and if it is conserved, what it is doing, it get mutated. I will tell you, guys. Similarly, so this is the ring domain. I am showing the ring domain alignment, and this is the BRCT C-terminal domain alignments. And the conclusion is ring domain and 2 BRCT are most conserved region of the proteins. So what this conserved region is doing? So I just do some theoretical concept. So you got, okay, this is the sequence alignment. So how to construct phylogenetic tree? Just this is suppose B and A, this is 0.87. This is the distance, the number of exact masses divided by the sequence length. So that means 87% sequence identity between B and A. The 59% sequence identity between C and A, and 60% sequence identity between C and B. Okay, so on this basis, just need to construct the phylogenetic tree and first align the most closely related sequence. So there are several software available on net. You guys can also download. There are several software. There are several software available, so we can find out, okay, this particular sequence, then it will find out, okay, these many sequences are available. So you can find out, okay, these many sequences are available, these many sequences are similar to this, these many sequences are not similar to this. Then what we get? Then come to the structure alignment. After, once you have the sequence, we can align the structures. How we will align the structures, I will tell you. So what you really want to do, align a region of similar function. Okay, I will show you the protein structure, and I want you guys to align the region of similar function. There are the area that are evolutionary conserved. So what is the problem? Computer doesn't know anything about the structure of the function of the protein. What is the solution? Use computer alignment as a first step, then manually adjust the alignment to account for the region of structure similarity. What we get with this? So these are different, helix, sheets, active sites, and disulfide bonds. All these when we align, what kind of information comes, I will tell you. So before I begin, I will show you how to align the structure and what kind of information we get. So there are several protein structure. You guys can see, this is one protein. This is one protein. This is another protein. This is another protein. They are different. Some are moving here and there, here and there. Now, I want to know how this protein is different than others. What regions are different, and what kind of it constitutes? What is the secondary structure of the protein? So let's see. Just see this protein. This I am looking at the only one protein, and this is a complex of a particular another protein. So you see here, this is it is very easily you can predict it. What is here? Helix. Okay, this is the helix, and I will tell you guys where to predict the shears. We will get the shears also. So you can see, what are these? These are the shears. Clear? And what is this? Here is a turn. Okay. So basically, what shears, helix, and turns are doing. Okay. Now, this is a one protein has its own function. But when they come close to each other, they have the functions of a complex protein. Okay. Now, the very important is that which region is affecting the function of a protein. So if you see, do you think this region has any effect with this? So how we determine the function? Computer don't know anything. We need to tell the computer that okay, the region that is at the interface between these two proteins or the biological activations. What we are doing here? Suppose there are two proteins and they are the complex, and something got mutated at this level. When this guy binds to this, there is a transcriptional activation. When this guy don't bind to this, there is no transcription. Then what is the conclusion? Suppose anything that is mutating at this point, this mutation is not allowing this guy to bind here. So this mutation, what is the conclusion? This mutation is pathogenic mutation. So for example, BRCA1, this is big protein, and if you see the breast cancer information code database, more than 1600 mutations are reported. So all 1600 mutations are pathogenic? No. There are several mutations, but only the mutations here in this concern, only the mutation, those who are at the interface between binding for these two proteins, I can say they are the pathogenic mutations. How we predict other characteristics? Suppose someone is saying the mutation is here and they are also pathogenic, they are not at the interface. So only, as I told you, only one thing is not a hallmark to predict, okay, this particular mutation is pathogenic. We found some mutations, we are also mapping the cancer causing mutation in Indian family, and we found some mutations, they are not at the interface, and that has the family history of that mutations, and that mutation is lying somewhere here. Then how to predict the functional aspects of that mutation? So suppose any mutation is here, this is the helix, and any mutations that is breaking the helix, for example, somewhere you are alanine and got mutated into the proline. Proline is a base helix breaker, very rigid amino acids. Okay, so what happens? The helix broken down means this region is destabilizing. full domain of the protein, and this destabilized protein don't bind to this protein. Okay, so this way we predict the protein structure. On the basis of the structure, you can say that okay, this is the structural based functional activity. So I'll show you how I will align some. I am superimposing some of the proteins. And then I tell you guys how we predict the functions of other proteins. Okay. Now everything got superimposed. Can you see? Everything got superimposed. So after superimposition, what is our prediction? After superimposition, our prediction is they are the class. You see the secondary structure. Do you find any changes? Any changes anywhere? There is hardly some changes, but there is no change in the secondary structure of the protein. Wherever is the helix, there is a helix. Wherever is the seed, there is a seed. So there is no change on the secondary structure of the protein. So if you compare, suppose you give this information to database that okay, this protein is available with these many alpha helix, these many beta sheets, find out other number of a protein available in the database, and it will conclude you will come to a particular conclusion, okay, these kind of a proteins are same class of a entity. Okay, so suppose you have this protein and you are finding okay all, so my conclusion here is they are the same class of a protein. They all are BRCT. Okay, so of course they are from the different genes. I will tell you how different they are, but you can predict the function of the protein. Okay, they are somehow associated with the cancer. Okay. So this is the way you can build a kind of a protein tree, and you can conclude something. So as I told you, this is the BRCA1. You see the BRCA1 protein, it is 1863 amino acid, very big protein, and it's strong candidate for breast and ovarian cancer susceptibility. It has several functional domain. Okay, this is the ring domain. If you remember, I showed you that ring domain is conjugate, and this is BRCT. C-terminal domain. C-terminal domain is also conjugate, and there are several other functional domains. And these all are the binding partners. How we recognize okay these are the binding partners of the proteins? Only, of course, bioinformatics is not one of the tools, but on the basis of a sequence similarity, and you can predict okay this particular sequence consensus sequence whoever has will binds to the BRCT. So on that basis you can say that okay these are the binding partner of BRCT. You can say these are the binding partner of. So for example, BRCA1 has ring finger domain, and BARD1 in other protein it also have ring finger domain. So both are the binding partners. Okay, so whoever is having ring finger domain, it's not only one, but there are several ring finger containing proteins, but they may bind to the BRCA1, may not bind to the BRCA1, but here they are the binding partners. This C-terminal domain any sequence, any proteins that have this consensus sequence, phosphorylated serine at 0 position, suppose this is 0 position, and phenylalanine at 3 position, they all will bind to the BRCA. So on that basis, we concluded that these many proteins and some more proteins having this kind of a consensus sequence, and they will bind to the BRCA. Okay. Now, what is the functional aspects? So when this region, this was the structure of the BRCT. This is the structure of the BRCT. This is the structure of the BRCT, and this is the binding partner. Only particular amino acid of a binding partner. Okay, so you have seen only the alpha helix. I will show you something. Now we will go to the protein level. Let me change the color. These dotted lines, they are the water molecules. Okay, and there are two proteins. This is the one binding partner, and this is the structure of BRC. This is the structure of BRC. I'll show you one very important mutation. This mutation. This is methionine 1775. You see here. This is the region that is involved in the binding to the another binding partners. Okay, and this is other regions that have different functional aspects. One population had mutations from methionine to arginine. What I said, when this guy binds to this, there is a transcription activation. One population that has methionine to arginine, when it got mutated methionine to arginine, let's see what is happening. I will just give the example. Simple mutate methionine to arginine. Okay. So if you see that this methionine to arginine, actually since already it is there, so it is going at this level. Here we cannot show it. We do the molecular dynamics. So the arginine is going this side. Arginine is going this side. This arginine, a single mutation is not allowing this binding partners to bind this, and that's why there is no transcription, and this is one of the causes of liver problems. Okay, so this is the way we predict the functional activity of a protein. So these all are the binding partner of a BRCTs, and at the amino acids, those who are at the interface of BRCT and these, they are expected, they are the most likely pathogenic mutations. So it is very well expressed in the human breast and ovarian cancer cell lines. You can see that this is the protein immunoglobulin APRECA1 with particular antibodies, and this is the BRCA1. And mutations in BRCA1 occur in 50% women with inherited breast cancer and 90% with combined breast and ovarian cancers. This is the one of the worst form of breast cancer, and the risk of developing cancer is not identical for all carrier of BRCA1 and BRCA2 mutations. Risk can be influenced by allelic heterogeneity, modified genes, environmental and hormonal factors. So it is very easy to do the work. We can say that our culture don't work, our bacteria don't grow, but you see the real, when you see the patient, how complicated life and how serious research needed. So what happens? Since the discovery of BRCA1, 15 years since the discovery of BRCA1 and BRCA2, genetic testing for breast and ovarian cancer field has become integrated into the practice of clinical oncology. Means genetic counseling is started. Okay, this particular mutation, this class of family is having. So the grandmother got mutations at this age, and then she got affected at this age. This her daughter got affected this mutation at this age. This daughter got mutation at this age. So probably something. Of course, there are several ethical issues. People are very much aware of that. This her daughter at particular age may get that kind of disease. So BRCA1, it has been implicated in interaction with more than 25 different proteins, and tumor suppressor in BRCA1 participate in multiple cellular process. And this is the one of the most studied gene in cancer research, but despite the abundance of available data, new variants of unknown significance are regularly detected in clinical practice. Even so much information is available, but new variants still are available. Means people are detecting in different populations. So carrier of germline mutation in breast cancer in BRCA1 have an increased risk of developing breast and ovarian cancer. Clinically important deletion, truncation, and missense mutations that presumably affect the ability of BRCA1 to interact with the other protein partners may impair its function and have been identified throughout complete full gene 1863 amino acid. So this is the sequence homology in BRCA1. we don't have internet, Sanjay?
Yeah.
So I will show you how we predict, how using bioinformatics tools we can predict a particular mutation is pathogenic. But as I told you, this is not one of the so okay. You cannot say someone got this mutation, okay, this will happen this way. That is only for the research purpose. If you see here, here is the valine. This valine is conjugate. Here is the proline. This proline is conjugate. So suppose this valine got mutated to some other amino acids. Then of course, suppose okay, here is variable region, here is the variable region, here is the variable region. There are several regions that is the variable, anything happening, okay, don't bother much. But if anything is happening at the conjugate, of course we have to bother everywhere. But if anything is happening at the conjugate region, then definitely this region is most conjugate everywhere. But how come it got mutated? That means something is wrong. Okay, what is wrong there? Then you have to go you have to use one of the tools, that is the structure biology or bioinformatics. Okay, on this basis it predicts that this particular mutation is pathogenic. So BRCT, as I told you. So this is the BRCT. This is a kind of a close to 25 kilodalton proteins, and the sequence identities, motif, all these predicts that okay, this kind of a proteins may be having this a kind of a cancer associated function. So this is the structure of BRCT. So if you see, you guys have seen the structure, this complete structure, this structure. I am showing here that is this. So this is the structure of a BRCT, and this is the N-terminal domain, and this is C-terminal domain. And these are the sequence similarity with others. BRC1, BRC1, BRC2, C-terminal. If you see here, there is a KOT in this place. Okay? Why the KOT is there? These are the helix, these are the parallel 4 beta sheets. There are two domains, one is you can say that N-terminal, so that's what we call N-terminal BRCT. This is another domain, it is the C-terminal, we call C-terminal BRCT. And this is the linker region. This linker region is very much flexible. It is the interface of BRCT1 and BRCT2. Something is holding here, something is holding here, and then what happens to the phase interface? That is flexible. And what is the conclusion? What people found that most of the cancer causing mutations are present at the linker region. Okay, so this is the way we predict, I can say that structure-based functional activities. So not only one of the factors, see, here is the methylene and here is the alanine. Methylene at 1775 position, you can say that got mutated to arginine. Every theory don't hold everywhere. Here is the alanine. Alanine got mutated to glutamic acid. Now methionine got mutated to arginine. Both are molecular size, both are more or same. Methionine to arginine. But alanine to glutamic acid, then there is a change. So why alanine to glutamic acid is pathogenic? Because at this region, the region is such a small region that it cannot accommodate glutamic acid. So since this region cannot accommodate glutamic acid and it got mutated to the glutamic acid, so what happens? This glutamic acid destroyed functional activity, destroyed this domain, and this disturbed domain disturbed full BRCT domain. So I can say that since alanine 1708 packs into a small hydrophobic pocket near the center of the interface, which would not be expected to accommodate the larger negatively charged glutamic acid at 175 position. So since it cannot accommodate, but it got mutated, this mutated glutamic acid is disturbing this domain, and that's why we can say that okay, this is the one of the pathogenic mutations. What is the arginine? Arginine, as I told you, that it has some functional aspect with the binding partner. It is not allowing binding partner to bind on this. That's why this is the pathogen. So we need to see the full structure. There are, as I told you, more than 1600 mutations are available. And all the 1600 mutations are not pathogenic, only few mutations are pathogenic. So what basis they are the pathogenic? We need to evaluate one by one structurally, and of course there are several other methods you need to find out, okay, because of this reason this particular mutation may be the pathogenic. So this is the this was the BRCT region, BRCT structure, and this is the domain where I can say that another phosphopeptide binding protein is present here. So if you see phosphorylated serine and phenylalanine 3, see this region is going somewhere else, this region is going somewhere else. This is BRCT, but only this particular motif, phosphorylated serine and phenylalanine, these 4 amino acids are holding full BRCT1 and BRCT. This is BRCT1 and this is BRCT. If you mutate any of the mutations, there is no binding, and since there is no binding, then functional aspect will get changed. And this is very big protein. This is very big protein, and this very big protein is completely held by only 4 amino acids, and that is the phosphorylated serine and phenylalanine. If anything is happening, suppose anything is happening at this region that disturbs the binding, so we can say that of course that region or that cause or that mutation is definitely pathogenic. Okay, so methionine to arginine mutation is sitting here, and when it got mutated from methionine to arginine, it is encroaching to the phenylalanine side, and it is not allowing this binding partner to bind. I will show the figure also. And this is another binding partner. So you see, if you do the structure alignment, you again see that there are several binding partners, but only phenylalanine at 3 position and phosphorylserine at 0 position. It holds complete BRC1, BRCT. One domain N-terminal is going this side, another C-terminal is going this side. So how we predict? This is not only in silico. If you do some kind of ITC, protein interaction analysis, and on that basis you can say that okay, this guy is binding with another binding partner with this particular micromolar of binding affinity, this guy is binding with another binding partner with this micromolar of binding affinity. So this is a bioinformatics. It's not only computer. We have it is coming from a lot of wet lab laboratories, a lot of experiments that someone can see by the eye. Okay, yes, this is happening. On that basis, formula is generated, and someone is predicting the functional aspects of the proteins. So this is one of the binding partners. So I told you these are the number of binding partners. This is BRC and BRCT. So when you see the weak intermolecular interactions, so these are the binding partners and these are the proteins. So you see the only few amino acids. These amino acids are at the interface. So if anything happening, for example, methionine 175 to arginine, that is one of the cause of retinal formation. So anything is happening at the interface that is affecting the functionality. Now, what these dotted lines are indicating? They are the weak intermolecular interaction. You can see that hydrogen bonding, hydrophobic interaction. So for the research purpose, these weak intermolecular interactions are also playing very important role when we talk about the drug design. So suppose this is one of the drug. I consider this is a drug and this binds. Okay, this is a drug, it binds to this binding partner, this target, that's the target. Then what is? So we got, it's not that it don't have biological activity, it has the biological activity. But how come side effects are coming? What are the responsible factors for the side effects? So you need to go more in the basic, and if you see the binding parameter, for example, weak interactions, they are also playing very important role in order to predict the biological activity of any drug use. So this I wanted to say that, okay, hydrogen bonding, this indicates hydrophobic interaction. These are the hydrogen bonding. They also play very important roles when we talk about the drug design and drug design. Let's talk about the drug. So let's come to the genomics. So as I told you, the breast cancer information for BIC, it is a repository and close to 1500 genetic variants have been reported in BRCA gene, and that means all the 1500s are pathogenic? No. They may be deleterious mutations and polymorphisms, no clinical significance, or sequence variation of unknown significance. So what we are doing, we are also identifying traits, mutations in Indian families, and we found some mutations. Some are imported mutations that is already present in the breast cancer information code. Some are unreported mutations, and that particular family has a history of that disease. And those mutations, now how to predict that particular mutation is only one of the cause. So it's not only okay, someone is knowing the bioinformatics, give this information is saying okay, this mutation is one of the cause. There are several factors when we talk about the pathogenicity of a particular mutation. So I wanted to show you online that this is called Grantham variation and Grantham deviation. If anyone get it, you go back to home, your home office, and just write align Grantham variation, Grantham deviation. There are several genes. BRCA1 is available, BRCA2 is available, CHK1 is available, MBC1 is available. Several genes are available. Number one. Number two, you can get your gene. You can get the information of your gene of interest and align them. The sequence alignment which I showed you guys. Align them, and on that basis calculate the Grantham variation and Grantham deviation. So if the Grantham variation, see, there are Grantham variation and Grantham deviation, it gives different number. So it is start from class C0, C15, C25, C35, C45, C55 and C65. So if anything is coming at class C0, that means that mutation is less likely. This is not one of the barriers, but rather than doing all the analyzing, if you ask someone to purify the 1500 mutants of a particular gene, it is very difficult to purify a particular protein, and then 1500 mutations similarity, and then you cannot purify the protein. So what is the very fast, fail fast and fail cheap? Okay, just go through this and see one mutation that is in 1634E2K, and that is classified as class C0. That means it is less likely. But one mutation that is 172P, it is classified as class C65. That means this mutation is most likely pathogenic. And our prediction is as accurate as what people are predicting using several other models. I will tell you. So on this basis, I am talking about the C-terminal domain of a BRCA1. In BRCA-BRCT domain, if you see only C-terminal domain, see these are the number of the variants with strong functional effects, and these are the number of variants with no functional effects. So some variants is available, and we are predicting okay, they don't have any functional effect. So there is no point after working on them. But these variants, if you see, they are with the strong functional effects. So this kind of information we can get very fast, but it's not we can just get the very fast. If you go on the software, if you go on the Grantham variation, Grantham deviation, you will realize how hard that guy works and how many data he analyzes in order to formulating one particular formula. So on that basis, on that formula, he is saying that okay, this particular mutation is pathogenic or not. So he made our life easy. Okay, so bioinformatics is not that okay, just put the information to the server and that information is coming out. Ultimately, scientist hand is working. So he has already done huge amount of work, and probably so please go write down align GVGT. Okay, so you will see, and there is a paper also he wrote in the science. You will come to know that okay, on this basis he calculated really how reliable the information is available. So after this genomics, see the proteomics. Different form of different stage of tumor levels, different kind of protein are expressing. Someone is down regulating, someone is upregulated. And this is the genetic information and this is the proteins. But it matters. Suppose I have proteins and I am saying, okay, you predict using 2D case. So you can predict something that a 2D can provide you. You cannot predict anything beyond the limit of the 2D. Then suppose there is a mass spectrum. So if even you have something in the picomolar level, the mass spectrometry is such a sensitive a kind of an instrument that can predict even at the picomolar level also. But if anything is at even that level, below than that level, then we don't know how to predict it. We cannot predict it. So for example, this is the proteomics. This is the 2D case. You see, this is the control, means healthy individual, and this is the patient. And there are something when you load on 2DJ, okay? When you load, then something is expressing different than this. How can someone do by using R? It is very difficult. You cannot. If you run one particular sample and another sample, and someone says, okay, predict, fine. If something is really very much visual, you can see. Otherwise, you have to use the bioinformatics tools. So after enzymatic digestion, you do the mass. This is the mass spectrometry. But you pick this particular spot and do the enzymatic digestion. And after this enzymatic digestion, give this information to the mass spectrometry. Mass spectrometry will say, okay, this is the molecular mass of this amino acid, and then give this information to the database, and it will find, okay, these many amino acids containing proteins are available in this kind of a database, whether it's human or mouse or whatever. So that information will come to, okay, once you search on the database, you can say that, okay, this peak belongs to this kind of thing. Okay, so this is very important an application of the bioinformatics. So using bioinformatics, difference in the intensity between the two sample based on their staining profile can also be. Okay, so identification of additional proteins for cancer progression could lead to this new diagnostic or prognostic marker. I am not saying this is one of the tools, but yes, in a particular population there is a differences between the healthy control and patient. So that particular protein may be a diagnostic or prognostic, and it is there. Their report are there, and genetic counseling is started. So as I told you, there are several mutations. So on that basis, okay, these many mutations are no transcription activation, but then they are the cancer activation. And these many mutations, they are no transcriptional activation, but the functional effects is not known. There, what I am indicating that these earlier, when this guy wrote the paper in 2004, there was no information about this. But recently, the mutation, those who are at the no transcription activation, these two mutations are also phycogenic mutations. How they are? So, okay, only bioinformatics, you need to see the family pedigree also. See, you pedigree means I think everybody knows now. So this is the male and this is the female. Okay, this is the this is the disease. These are the diseases, and this is the female disease. This is the male disease. Okay. So you see one particular mutation is with this female, okay, and then from here to the third generation, and then from here to fourth generation. Okay, so only one tool is not available. We are finding, okay, this particular methine to lysine, it is the pathogenic. So what are other information is available? So of course genetic counseling and genetic information is started recently, and the conclusion is that this daughter, whatever great granddaughter, got inherited mutations from this. Okay, so this particular mutation is available here, this particular mutation is available here, and the same mutation is available here also. So this is the family pedigree, but what is structure and function is saying? Sorry. When methionine to lysine, see this is the ITC. ITC is a kind of a that will tell you whether protein interaction is there or not. So when methionine to lysine is there, this mutation and the binding partner is this. See, there is no binding. Sorry, And when there is a methionine to lysine with another binding partner, see, there is no binding. But when there is a wild type, there is binding. Means this is one of the tools that predicts, okay, there is no binding. There is no binding means there is no transcription. And there is no transcription means this is the one of the causative human part. So this is another tool that is predicting. First we have got this evidence, that is this particular mutation has changes. Then we made the proteins and we found that okay, our prediction is if they are binding, then there is a transcription. Since this mutation don't allow binding, means this is a not allowing transcription. Protein is not encoding properly. And then what happens in the structure? See, this is the molecular surface. This is the molecular surface. And when this mutation, particularly earlier it was methionine, got mutated to arginine, see, this arginine is not allowing this guy to bind. So this is the third domain, third model that is predicting, okay, this is not allowing for the transcription. This is not allowing the protein to code properly. That means this particular mutation is pathogenic. So we are predicting using multi-model based approach, okay, this particular mutation is pathogenic. Okay? Then of course, you need to make the protein. When you predict anything, I think when you predict anything, we should have pure protein. It's not that okay, there are several genes. So I told you that it is very difficult to purify the protein. And if you tell someone, okay, you have the protein, pure protein, then make the protein in a mutate, make the protein of mutant, then again the problem comes. So it will be very complicated and very much time consuming. But if you have the model, experimentally available model, on that basis using bioinformatics tools, you can predict the function of the other proteins. So for example, these all are other cancer associated. See, this is the one of the CD spectrum. So I told you methionine, here is the methionine, M1775, and another one is the methionine 12. The cancer, everybody see? So this is the CD spectrum. Red indicates the wild type and blue indicates the M2R. Okay, you see here what is happening? There is a change in the secondary spectrum. Okay, so this is another model that is predicting, okay, this mutation is doing something. For example, there is no change in the secondary spectrum. So fine, that the mutation may not be doing anything. Here you see that one of the mutation that comes from M to R, this is changing the second CD. It is a kind of thing that predicts the secondary structure of the protein. So this is the CD spectrum, and that predicts that okay, there is a change in the secondary structure of the protein. So on this basis, after this, we need to determine the structure. So see, this is the as I told you that. Only bioinformatics is not a kind of a that is something on the computer. So this is the X-ray structure. We purify the protein. After purification of the protein, to slide the protein, get the X-ray diffraction data that really predict, okay, this particular atom is sitting here at the atomic resolution. So this is the X-ray structure of a binding partner. This is another BRD1 associated with protein, and this, see, if you see the structure of a I was talking about the BRC1 BRCT, and this is BRD1 BRCT. If you see the structure of a BRC1 BRCT and BRD BRCT, both are same. And how same are? I will show you. See, if you superimpose them, they both are same. But BRC1 BRCT has a number of binding partners, and BRD1 BRCT don't have any binding partner. Why it don't have any binding partner? See. Here is this is the superimposed structure of a BRC1 BRCT and BRD1 BRCT. There is a phosphoserine and then the phenylalanine. This is the region where phenylalanine is there, and this is the region where phosphoserine is there. But in place of a phosphoserine, in BRD1 BRCT, there is a sulfate only. You don't have any binding partner. Why? Because this is the region isoleucine to histidine. Here is the phenylalanine sulfates, but this region is such a condensed region that it is not allowing anyone to hit. So if this mutation got mutated, this region got mutated, that means something is wrong. And there are results that when this histidine got mutated to another amino acid, that mutation So see, here is the phosphate serine, and in place of phosphoserine there is a sulfate, and this is the histidine and asparagine 761. These two amino acids, see the hydrogen bonding. This is the role of a hydrogen bonding, as I told you when we talk about the particular this hydrogen bonding. The one single hydrogen bonding is not allowing other bonding partners to come here. So if anything is getting mutated, that is making very drastic change in the functional activity of this domain, and that mutation is a pathogenic delivery code. So this is, you know, the overall goal is to find a drift, and we eat the drift, we take the drifts, and then our headache is gone. How everything is. We have the problem in eye, but we take the drift. Why the problem in eye goes, or we are taking the drift from here? That means this guy will not go anywhere. This guy will go and fit in the place where it recognizes. It will go and bind only on its receptor site. So that is the main purpose. We talk about the drift design. So this structure-based drift design, there are a given protein structure, or its binding site, or its active ligand. Find a new molecule that changes the protein's activity. So for example, this is a structure, this is a given protein structure, and this is the binding site, and now we need to find a new ligands, and now this is the function of the full proteins, and this is not only one hallmark, okay, this is a drug. There are several factors, as I told you, we take the molecular interaction, so many other things. Then you need to play around these compounds and in order to find better tricks, better leads. Similarly, ligand based, we have the structure, now we have the ligand. And if you have the ligand, for example, this is the ligand. Now here is the fluorine, bromine, iodine, chlorine. So at this particular position, for example, electronegativity is going up. Then what is happening with the functional activity of the protein? What is happening with the functional activity of the leads? And if you tell someone, okay, synthesize this compound, synthesize when chlorine is one position. Then synthesize when bromine is this position. Synthesize when chlorine is this. This will take a lot of time. It's very time consuming. But what bioinformatics do, Quasar, just want to talk about, this is the quantitative structure activity relationship, and the number of compounds required for synthesis in order to place 10 different groups in 4 positions of a benzene ring is 10,000. So suppose here in the 4 position of a benzene ring, 1 position, 2, 3, 4, and someone wanted 10 different groups because we want to see, and to synthesize those compounds you need close to 10,000 compounds. Then what is the solution? Synthesize a small number of compounds and from their data derive rules to predict the biological activity of other compounds. Okay? How? Just very simple example. In your college, university, someone is coming from particular college, 10 students, very good. Next year another 10 students, very good. Next year another 10 students, very good. So on this basis, we made a formula, and we will not predict the biological activity of a next coming 10 students. Then we can say, okay, we made a formula that from the students coming from this college is very good. So similarly, the Quasar, what it do is kind of a mathematical relationship. It is very big mathematical equation. Thousands of the parameters need to analyze, but that computer too. It's a mathematical relationship between the biological activity of a molecular system and its geometrical and chemical characteristics. So it attempts to find the relationship between biological activity and molecular properties. So the rules can be used to evaluate the activity of other compounds. How reliable it is? It is as reliable as you synthesize the compounds and check the biological activity. So you see, this is the actual, you synthesize the compounds, scientists synthesize the compound and calculated the biological activity, and that is coming 6.46. But this is the predicted activity. And what is the predicted activity? It's 6.09. 6, 7.7. So this is as accurate as what we 2 in the wet lab. Okay, so now we made a relation and then again go for the biological activity rather than just blindly synthesizing and use other solvents of the compound. So this is the very important use of the bioinformatics. This I just wanted to do that as 5 students and to the and somebody like that. And the overall goal is bioinformatics from here to go to the patient. It's very easy to see that culture is not going through, bacteria is not, but if you see the patient, if you talk to the patient, the real life is there. So the serious research will be getting harder to get better life models. And from human to frog, it is selected all the genes. And now select your file to upload or paste your list of substitutes. For example, S2 this, like this is the format. So I remember one mutation. For example, M1775 to R. Okay, and then submit this information. Then what it tells you? It will give the value and it is taking some time. And that will test us that okay, whether that particular mutation is pathogenic or what class of mutation is present. So if you see here, what is saying that this is what is the class reduction C65, and that means this mutation is most likely pathogenic. So you can predict it, you can do for every BRCA1, BRCA2, whatever the genes is available, whatever genes you have in your mind, you can compile and get the information and can build a nice phylogenetic tree of a particular enzyme. So this is one of the assignments. But it's not, it's for us it is okay, keeping the values, but you see, if you read the paper, how this what basis graph of variation, the graph of deviation is working, this multiple sequence alignment and what is happening within the genes, what is happening in the surrounding, considering all hydrophobicity, molecular size, everything, and he made the formula, and on that basis, it is predicting that this particular mutation is pathogenic, but this result is as reliable as what people is getting in the using as analysis.
By using that, we can treat, we can do the scientific research related to the cancers. So I am on behalf of the Bioinformatics Department of Biotechnology in the I am very thankful